had served the collective for 200 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species destroy themselves and others find peace. Nothing surprised him anymore, or so he thought. When the Galactic Council told him to observe the new species called humans, he felt insulted. This was a job for junior ambassadors, not someone of his experience. Humans had only discovered space travel 50 years ago. They were bobbies in a galaxy full of ancient civilizations. What could they possibly do that would matter? But orders were orders. So stood in the docking bay of Council Station, his crystalline body catching the light as he waited for the human ship to arrive. The vessel that emerged from the jump point was small, ugly even. It had none of the elegant curves of ships or the threatening spikes of warships. It looked like someone had welded metal boxes together and hoped for the best. The name painted on its side read, "The Perseverance." Made a note in his report, humans clearly lacked advanced engineering. The airlock opened and 3 humans stepped out. Had seen images of them before, but seeing them in person was different. They were soft creatures. No armor, no claws, no protective shells. Their skin looked fragile enough to tear with a touch. How had such weak beings even survived on their own planet? The oldest human stepped forward. He had mixed into his black hair and lines on his face that had learned meant age among their kind. His uniform was simple and dark, with small metal symbols on his shoulders. "Admiral Park," the man said, extending his hand. "Thank you for receiving us, Ambassador." Had studied human customs. He reached out and shook the offered hand, surprised by the firmness of the grip. "Welcome to Council Station, Admiral. I am of the Collective. I will be your guide during your time here." Behind the Admiral stood 2 others. A woman with sharp eyes and black hair pulled back tight introduced herself as Commander. She smiled when she spoke, but noticed her eyes never stopped moving, studying everything around her. The third was another woman, softer in appearance, with glasses perched on her nose. Dr. Myra, their chief scientist. Over the following days, showed them the station. He took them to the trading halls where species from across the galaxy exchanged goods. He showed them the council chambers where laws were made. He introduced them to representatives from a dozen different civilizations. The humans were polite. They bowed their heads in respect. They said please and thank you. They asked for permission before entering rooms. In many ways, they reminded of children visiting an elder's home for the first time. But something about them made uncomfortable in a way he could not explain. They asked questions constantly, not just simple questions, but deep ones. They wanted to know about trade routes and who controlled them. They asked about old wars and how they ended. They wanted to understand which species had conflicts with which others. Commander spent hours studying maps of the galaxy, marking things in a small notebook she carried everywhere. "Your species is very curious," observed one evening. Admiral Park smiled softly. "We have much to learn. The galaxy is vast and we are new to it. Most new species focus on establishing trade relationships first. You seem more interested in history and politics." "We believe understanding the past helps us prepare for the future," Doctor said. "Humanity has learned this lesson many times." Decided to test them. He took them to the memorial hall where the council kept records of great tragedies. He showed them footage of the conquest when the Empire had burned 12 worlds to ash. Billions of beings had died. Cities had turned to glass. Entire species had been erased from existence. Most new species reacted to this footage with horror. Some cried. Others turned away, unable to watch. The delegation had needed medical attention after viewing it. The humans watched in silence. Admiral Park's face showed nothing. Commander leaned forward slightly, her eyes focused on the tactical displays showing how the fleet had moved. Doctor pulled out a small device and began taking notes. "This is disturbing to you, yes?" asked, watching their reactions carefully. "Very much so," Admiral Park replied. His voice was calm, steady. "The loss of life is tragic beyond words. Yet you do not look away." The Admiral met's eyes. "Looking away does not make horror disappear, Ambassador. It only means you cannot see it coming for you." That night wrote a longer report than usual. He described the humans as intelligent and adaptable. He noted their physical weakness but mentioned their unusual mental composure. He suggested that further observation was needed. But he left out one detail. He did not write about the moment when the footage showed a new weapon being deployed, one that had cracked a planet's crust and killed 4 billion beings in seconds. Commander had smiled. Not a happy smile, not a cruel smile. It was the smile of someone solving a puzzle, of someone who saw something others missed. She had whispered something to Admiral Park, who had nodded once. Did not know what the words meant, but he remembered them. "We can do better than that." He told himself he had misheard. He told himself it meant nothing. These were soft, weak creatures from a young civilization. They posed no threat to anyone. But that night, for the first time in decades, found it difficult to sleep. 6 months passed on Council Station. The humans settled into a quiet routine. They attended meetings, asked their endless questions, and smiled politely at everyone. Other species began to ignore them. Humans were friendly but unimportant. They had no great fleet, no powerful weapons, no valuable resources. They were background noise in the great symphony of galactic politics. Continued his observation, though he found less and less to report. The humans were boring, predictable. He began to think he had imagined his earlier concerns. Then the Empire began to move. There were reptilian creatures, tall and covered in thick scales. They had been warriors for 10,000 years. Their empire spanned 200 star systems, and their fleet numbered over 600 warships. Every few decades, they would expand into neutral space, take what they wanted, and dare the Council to stop them. The Council never did. They would issue sanctions, make speeches, and express grave concern. They would keep their new territory, and everyone would pretend it had not happened. This was how galactic politics worked. The strong took, and the weak complained. This time, they chose a human target. The mining colony was called New. It sat on the edge of explored space, far from Earth and far from help. 47,000 humans lived there, digging precious metals from the rocks. They had no military presence, no defenses worth mentioning. When the fleet arrived, the colony surrendered within hours. Watch the council session that followed with growing dread. "The Empire has violated the sovereignty of a council member," the High Arbiter announced. "This is unacceptable. We call upon them to release all human prisoners and withdraw from the system immediately." The ambassador, a massive creature named, laughed openly. "The Council's concern is noted. The Empire will consider your request in due time, perhaps in a year, perhaps 2. This was the game. Everyone knew the rules. The Council would talk, they would stall, and eventually some compromise would be reached that let them keep most of what they took. Admiral Park stood up. The chamber fell silent. New species did not speak in council sessions. They watched and learned. They did not involve themselves in matters between older civilizations. "The chair recognizes the human delegation," the High Arbiter said, sounding surprised. Admiral Park walked to the center of the chamber. His footsteps echoed in the sudden quiet. He looked small, surrounded by the towering representatives of ancient empires, but he did not seem to notice. "The Empire holds 47,000 of our citizens," he said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "We have requested their return through diplomatic channels. We have requested it twice. We have been ignored both times." Snorted, "Your requests mean nothing, human. You are infants in this galaxy. You have 31 ships. We have 600. Learn your place." Admiral Park nodded slowly, as if considering these words carefully. "I understand your position, Ambassador. Allow me to clarify ours." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative in turn. "We will not request a third time. In 72 hours, the human fleet will enter space. We will retrieve our people. Any vessel or installation that attempts to stop us will be destroyed." The chamber erupted in noise. Some representatives laughed, others gasped. The ambassador rose to his full height, nearly 3 meters of scaled muscle and teeth. "You threaten the Empire with 31 ships." His voice dripped with amusement. "Human, I will personally eat your heart when we capture you." Admiral Park's expression did not change. "You are welcome to try, Ambassador." He turned and walked back to his seat. The council session dissolved into chaos, with representatives shouting over each other about proper procedure and diplomatic protocols. Pushed through the crowd to reach Commander. She stood apart from the commotion, watching the chaos with that strange smile he had seen before. "Commander, this is madness," said. "You cannot fight they will destroy your entire fleet in hours." Looked at him with something that might have been pity. "Ambassador, you have been kind to us these past months. I want you to remember that." What do you mean? I mean that when this is over, I hope you will think of us fairly, whatever others may say. Doctor appeared beside them. She touched his arm gently. Ambassador, I like you truly, so please listen to me now. Looked into her eyes and saw something that made his crystal body vibrate with sudden fear. She was not worried. She was not scared. She looked like someone standing at the edge of a storm, knowing exactly what was coming. Do not be anywhere near space in 72 hours, she said softly. Find a reason to be somewhere else, anywhere else, do you understand? Before could respond, Admiral Park called his people. The human delegation left the chamber together, walking past laughing soldiers and dismissive council members. Watch them go, 47,000 hostages, 31 ships against 600, 72 hours. The numbers made no sense. The threat was empty, it had to be. But Doctor's eyes stayed with him through the night, the eyes of someone who had already seen what was coming and made peace with it. Did not sleep that night either. The first day of waiting was filled with noise. Every species on Council Station talked about the humans. Most found the situation funny. A young civilization threatening an ancient empire was the best joke the galaxy had heard in centuries. Soldiers gathered in common areas, drinking and boasting about what they would do to the human fleet. Betting pools formed among the trading guilds. The odds against humanity surviving were beyond calculation. The human delegation stayed quiet. They attended no meetings. They made no statements. They simply remained in their quarters, doors sealed, communications blocked. By the second day, the jokes began to fade. Noticed it first among the older species. The who had watched civilizations rise and fall for 50,000 years stopped laughing. The council members, including himself, began having quiet conversations in private chambers. Something was wrong, though no one could say exactly what. They are too calm, the ambassador said during a chance meeting. A species facing destruction should beg for help. They should negotiate. They should do something. Perhaps they have accepted their fate, offered. No, this great eyes blinked slowly. I have seen many species face extinction. They scream, they fight, they cry. These humans sit in silence like predators waiting in tall grass. Could not shake those words from his mind. That night he began researching human history. The council archives contained basic information about every species, but had never looked deeply into the human files. They were new and unimportant. What could their short history possibly teach him? What he found made him wish he had never looked. Humans had been killing each other since before they had written language. They had fought over land, over resources, over ideas, over gods. They had invented weapons specifically designed to cause maximum suffering. They had developed poison gases that melted lungs from the inside. They had created bombs that could flatten entire cities in seconds. And then they had used those bombs on themselves, on their own species. Read about a war they called World War II. In 6 years, they had killed 70 million of their own kind. 70 million. The number was beyond comprehension. That was more than the entire population of some galactic civilizations. He found their concept of nuclear weapons. Humanity had built enough of these bombs to destroy their planet several times over. They had kept them pointed at each other for decades, living each day knowing that everything could end in fire. And they had survived, not just survived, but thrived. They had walked to the edge of extinction, stared into the darkness, and somehow pulled themselves back. Found a phrase in their military records that had no translation in any galactic language. Total war. It meant a conflict where everything was a weapon, where civilians and soldiers were equal targets, where victory mattered more than any cost. Other species had limited concepts of war. Rules, boundaries, acceptable losses. Humans had learned to remove all limits. He requested an emergency meeting with the council leadership. You must take this threat seriously, he told the High Arbiter. These humans are not like other species. They have been fighting since before they could walk upright. War is in their blood. The High Arbiter, an ancient being of light and energy, flickered with what might have been amusement. Ambassador, your concern is noted, but mathematics cannot be argued with. The humans have 31 ships. They have 600. Even the most skilled warriors cannot overcome such numbers. What if they have more ships than we know about? Impossible. We have monitored their space. We have counted their shipyards. 31 is the correct number. Wanted to argue more, but he had no evidence. only a feeling in his crystal core that something terrible was approaching. On the third day at hour 65, a message arrived at its private terminal. It was from Commander. Ambassador, you asked many questions about human history during your research last night. I hope you found the answers educational. In 7 hours, class will be in session for the rest of the galaxy. I suggest you find a seat with a good view. Stared at the message for a long time. How had she known what he was researching? Human systems should not have been able to access Council archives without detection. He sent a reply. What view would you recommend, Commander? Her response came within seconds. Watch the border, don't blink. Made a decision. He told no one. He simply went to the observation deck that faced space and waited. The hours passed slowly. Other observers came and went, but none stayed long. The border was quiet. Patrol ships moved in their regular patterns. Transport vessels jumped in and out of the system. Everything looked normal. At hour 71, heard footsteps behind him. Doctor stood there, 2 cups of something hot in her hands. She offered one to him. Tea, she said. A human drink. I thought you might want company. Accepted the cup. The liquid inside was warm and smelled of flowers. You are not with your delegation. The Admiral and Commander have other duties right now. I'm here to observe, like you. You seem calm, Doctor. She looked out at the stars. I am calm, Ambassador. I know what is about to happen. The uncertainty is for everyone else. What is about to happen? Doctor checked her timepiece. In 47 minutes, the galaxy will learn why humans are still alive, why we survived everything that should have killed us, why the universe has not managed to break us despite trying so very hard. She smiled and, for the first time, saw something ancient in her young eyes. We are about to teach a lesson, Ambassador. I hope they are good students. Turned back to the window. The stars were quiet. The border was peaceful. He counted down the minutes and tried not to be afraid. The clock reached 72 hours. For a moment, nothing happened. The stars remained still. The border stayed quiet, felt his hopes rise. Perhaps the humans had been bluffing after all. Perhaps they had come to their senses and decided that survival was better than pride. Then space tore open. Not at one point, not at two. At 17 different locations across space, bright wounds appeared in reality itself. Ships poured through like blood from a cut. His crystalline body rang with shock. He counted the vessels emerging from the first tier alone. 30, 40, 60, still more coming. Impossible, he whispered. Doctor stood beside him, watching with quiet satisfaction. We spent 50 years smiling at the galaxy, Ambassador, asking questions, learning. And while everyone saw 31 ships in our home systems, we built the rest in places no one thought to look. Where our sensors would have detected construction on that scale. Asteroid belts, gas giant moons, dead systems that no one visits. Humans are very good at hiding, Ambassador. We have had much practice. The final count was 312 human warships. They were ugly vessels built for function rather than beauty. No elegant curves, no decorative elements, just engines, armor, and weapons. So many weapons. But that was not what makes blood run cold. It was how they moved. The human fleet did not advance in formation like other species. They flowed. Each ship seemed to know exactly where every other ship was, what it was doing, what it needed. They moved like a single organism, like the fingers of one hand, like thoughts in one mind. The fleet, 600 strong, moved to intercept. Their formations were textbook perfect, the result of 10,000 years of military tradition. The humans ignored them. Instead of engaging the main fleet, the human ships scattered. They struck supply depots. They destroyed communication relays. They hit shipyards where new vessels were being built. Within the first hour, the great war machine went blind and deaf. They're not fighting the fleet, realized. They're fighting the Empire. Doctor nodded. In human military thinking, we call it cutting the muscles instead of punching the chest. A warrior without supplies cannot fight. A fleet without orders cannot organize. An empire without communication is just a collection of confused worlds. They tried to respond, but their orders arrived too slowly. By the time a battle group moved to protect a target, the humans had already destroyed it and moved on. They were everywhere and nowhere, striking and vanishing before they could bring their superior numbers to bear. 6 hours into the battle, Admiral Park's voice broadcast across all channels. "This message is for the High Command. You have 47,000 of our people. We are coming to collect them. Every ship that moves to intercept us will be destroyed. Every installation that targets us will be destroyed. This is not a negotiation. This is not a warning. This is simply information." The main human fleet changed direction. 300 ships, moving as one, pointed toward the detention facility on the moon of Prime. They threw 200 warships in their path. Watch the battle on the observation deck's tactical display. It lasted 11 minutes. Human ships fought like nothing he had ever seen. They covered each other, sacrificed themselves for each other, turned what should have been individual duels into coordinated slaughters. A captain would engage one human vessel only to find 3 more attacking from angles he never saw coming. When it was over, 187 ships were debris. The humans had lost 19. Howe asked, "Your technology is not superior to theirs. Your ships are not faster. How are you doing this?" Doctor's eyes never left the display. "Humans have something that most species lack, Ambassador. We trust each other. In battle, a human soldier knows that their comrades will die for them without hesitation. That trust allows us to take risks that others cannot. When you know someone has your back, you can focus entirely on what is in front of you." The human fleet reached the detention facility. Watch the helmet camera feeds that Commander had authorized for broadcast. This, he realized later, was intentional. The humans wanted the galaxy to see. Commander led the ground assault herself. 50 human soldiers against 2,000 guards. They were larger, stronger, better armored. They had defended this facility against rescue attempts before. They knew every corridor, every defensive position. It did not matter. The humans moved through the facility like ghosts. They did not fight fair. They did not announce themselves. They came from air vents, from beneath floors, from directions they never expected. When they killed quickly and silently. When they faced opposition they could not avoid, they simply went around it. In 43 minutes, every guard was dead or captured. Every human prisoner was freed. Not a single colonist was lost. Not a single human marine fell. Commander's final transmission from the surface was simple. Package secured. All 47,000 aboard, heading home. Behind her, the detention facility burned. Found he could not speak. Beside him, Doctor finally allowed herself a small smile. "We told them," she said quietly. "We asked twice, they should have listened." The human fleet, leaving behind a crippled empire and a galaxy that would never see them the same way again. The empire surrendered 19 hours after the battle began. Their fleet was still mostly intact. They still had 400 warships ready to fight, but their supply lines were gone. Their shipyards were burning. Their communication network was shattered. And worst of all, their leaders had watched 50 human soldiers walk through 2,000 of their best guards like wind through leaves. The surrender was unconditional. They returned all claimed territory. They paid compensation to the families of every colonist. They signed treaties that would limit their military expansion for the next 100 years. And they did it all while trembling. The Galactic Council chamber was silent when Admiral Park stood to address them. No one laughed now. No one whispered jokes about the young species with 31 ships. Representatives from 100 civilizations watched with new eyes as the soft, fragile human walked to the center of the room. "I wish to thank the Council for its concern during this crisis," Admiral Park said. His voice was the same calm tone as always, as if he had not just broken an empire in less than a day. "The situation has been resolved. Our people are home. We consider the matter closed." The High Arbiter spoke carefully, as if afraid of saying the wrong word. "Admiral Park, the Council requires an explanation. Your species declared 31 vessels. You deployed over 300. This is a violation of registration protocols." "You are correct, High Arbiter. We apologize for the confusion." "The confusion?" A representative rose, his many limbs shaking. "You hid 270 ships from the entire galaxy. Where? How?" Admiral Park smiled slightly. It was not a threatening smile, but somehow that made it worse. "We built them in places no one bothered to look. Asteroid fields, abandoned moons, dead systems that offered nothing worth claiming. While your council debated trade agreements and border disputes, we prepared." "Prepared for what?" the High Arbiter asked. "For this. For the moment when someone decided that our people's lives were worth less than their pride. We knew it would come. It always does. The strong always test the weak eventually. Doctor stood beside her admiral now. She spoke with the same gentle voice remembered from their first meeting, but the words carried weight that pressed against his crystal form. I would like to share something with the council, if I may. Among humans, we have a saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. We did not hide our fleet because we wanted to conquer. We hid it because we knew that one day we would need to defend ourselves against those who saw our kindness as weakness. And now, the ambassador spoke for the first time since the surrender. His voice was broken, exhausted. Now that you have proven your strength, what will you do? Expand, conquer, take revenge. Admiral Park looked at the massive reptile with something that might have been pity. We will do nothing, ambassador. Our people are home. That is all we wanted. We have no interest in your territory, your resources, or your empire. Then why? Why build such a force if not to use it? It was Commander who answered. She stepped forward, and despite her small size, every representative in the chamber focused on her completely. Humans do not fight to conquer, ambassador. We fight to end fights. We have learned, through thousands of years of bleeding, that the fastest path to peace is to make war so terrible that no one wishes to continue it. She paused, looking around the chamber at the ancient species, who had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. We have burned our own cities, we have poisoned our own lands, we have killed our own brothers by the millions, and from that horror we learned something important. When war comes, you do not fight to win battles. You fight to make the enemy understand that continuing to fight will cost them everything. They surrendered in 19 hours, she continued. Not because we destroyed their fleet. We did not need to. We destroyed their will to fight. We showed them that every moment they continued, they would lose more. We gave them a simple choice, stop now or lose everything. They chose wisely. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Finally understood. He understood why the humans had asked so many questions about past wars, why they had taken notes when watching the footage, why Commander had smiled when seeing weapons of mass destruction. They had been learning, not from curiosity, but from necessity. They had studied the galaxy's methods of war so they could do it better. After the session ended, found Doctor alone in a corridor. She turned to him with a tired smile. You have questions, ambassador. Many admitted, but only one that matters. Should we fear you? Doctor considered this for a long moment. They took our people, we took them back. They will not make that mistake again, neither will anyone else who watched today. She met his eyes. Fear is a tool, ambassador. We do not want the galaxy to fear us. We want the galaxy to understand us. And what should we understand? That humans do not want war. We hate it more than any species in this galaxy because we know it better than anyone. But when war is forced upon us, we do not hesitate. We do not hold back. We commit completely, absolutely, until the fight is finished. And then we stop. She placed her hand on his arm, a gentle human gesture of comfort. Be our friends, ambassador, trade with us, share knowledge with us, laugh with us at diplomatic parties, but please, for your own sake, never make us your enemies. Wrote his final report that night. It would be read by leaders across the collective and eventually shared with the entire council. The document was long and detailed, but its conclusion was simple. Do not provoke humanity, do not test them, do not mistake their kindness for weakness or their patience for inability. They are not a young species fumbling among the stars. They are survivors. They have already faced the worst enemy any civilization can have, themselves, and they won. They do not advance to war with joy or hunger. They advance with cold certainty, having already counted every cost, already mourned every death that will come, already committed to seeing it through no matter what. The galaxy does not need to fear humans because they are cruel. The galaxy should respect humans because they are efficient. They have turned the horror of war into a science, not to cause suffering, but to end it as quickly as possible. My recommendation to the collective is simple. Make them allies, make them friends. And whatever you do, whatever disputes may arise, never give them a reason to build more ships in the dark. Sent the report and looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, 300 human warships were returning home to asteroid belts and hidden moons, waiting, watching, ready. The galaxy had learned a lesson today, hoped they would remember it. He suspected the humans would make sure they did.